Now we've seen the basic chemistry of chocolate, we can start to experiment with new flavour combinations. I'm going to show you a spectacular dish that really is quite simple to make at home, I promise you. The basic concept of this dish comes from a great French chef, Michel Bras. I've then added my slant on it and combining chocolate with blue cheese. Don't balk, it does work, it really does. First, the ganache. Combine whipping cream with cracked coffee beans and some fresh espresso. Bring to the boil and immediately remove from the heat. Add some blue cheese, a mixture of Roquefort and Bleu d'Auvergne. Whisk till it's dissolved and the mix is smooth. Strain this through a sieve onto some diced butter and chocolate. Stir until melted. I'm just incorporating the chocolate with the blue cheese, butter and coffee. It takes a few minutes as you don't want to subject the chocolate or the butter to too high a temperature. So I'm just letting it melt slowly. Should take about 5 minutes in total. Okay, it's now all melted. That's ready to pour into the container and stick in the freezer. And now we're going to make the casing. In a mixing bowl, combine egg yolks and sugar. Whisk till the mix whitens and significantly increases in volume. Combine more bitter chocolate and butter in a bowl and melt gently in the microwave. When the egg and sugar mix is ready, gradually pour the melted chocolate and butter over it and whisk until completely mixed. Sift a little flour over the chocolate mix and fold in. Take small buttered ring moulds, place on a baking tray and line with silicone paper. Spoon enough chocolate mix in to cover the base. Remove the frozen ganache from the freezer and cut it into squares. Place a square in each ring mould and cover with more chocolate mix. Put in a preheated oven at 190 Celsius. They've been in the oven for 10 minutes. Time to get them out. To remove from the moulds, run a small sharp knife around the inside edge. Cutting releases a river of molten chocolate and blue cheese. That's why the French call this chocolat coulant, flowing chocolate. Right, that's really good. But why chemically does the combination of blue cheese and chocolate work so well? Can science help explain this and perhaps come up with some new great flavour combinations? Next stop, Geneva. We're off to see one of the world's most accomplished flavourists and we're going to talk to him about this very subject. Firmenich in Geneva, Switzerland, is one of the world's biggest manufacturers of flavour and perfumes. I visit whenever I can to swap ideas and discuss kitchen chemistry. Scientists here have been developing amazing new technology to push forward the science of flavour, so we can start to answer questions that have puzzled scientists and chefs for centuries. Like, why some food combinations taste so bad, and others, like chocolate and blue cheese, so good? To analyse the flavour of blue cheese, the scientists use a needle coated in super-sensitive absorbent powder. Volatile molecules containing the flavour fly off of the cheese and stick to the powder. The needle is put into a mass spectrometry machine, which processes the flavour molecules and produces an analysis of them in graph form. The first peak here is butyric acid, which helps give cheese its buttery note. The second peak here is an ester, which gives cheese a fruity note. There are hundreds of flavour molecules, not all visible in each foodstuff. This is a map of many of blue cheese's flavour molecules, showing the relative intensity of each one as it's released. This is the laboratory of François Benzi, chemist and flavourist. It's his job to produce new synthetic flavours. Amazing. So here, from one of the top flavourists in the world, is the reason why blue cheese and chocolate work so well together.
In fact, the reason is due to the similarity of many of these molecules, which we find on one hand in the blue cheese and on the other hand in the cocoa. Look at this. For instance,
Francois showed me a breakdown of the molecular profiles of chocolate and blue cheese. Marked in yellow, all of the molecules they share, including a host of ketones composed of carbon and oxygen.
Ketones, in fact, are chains of carbons with oxygen linked with a double bond. And they give generally very fruity or blue cheese character. Many ketones are also found in fruit flavors, in raspberry, strawberry, but berry flavors.
In cheeses and fruits, yeah, but in chocolate, if you look here, there's over 60%
Yes.
of the ketones in blue cheese are also in cocoa.
Yes.
And you wouldn't have expected that much, would you?
No. There are quite a few molecules in each group which are exactly the same.
I think also for me, what I like so much about this is there is evidence. It's on paper, you know. It's no longer an arbitrary thing that it comes down to somebody's palate. Okay, some people may like it more than others, but it throws light on a whole new world of possibilities, isn't it?
Certainly. When you see this, suddenly it's a brand new taste world which is getting open, and you wonder. I think maybe a person like you is just starting to put the finger in this new kind of possibilities.
So here you have it, chocolate and blue cheese, and there is a chemical molecular reason why they taste so good together. Science can also help you understand why certain ingredients just don't go together. I'm going to take some basil. That's fine. And now I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Oh, that's foul. Those two ingredients should never be put together. That is disgusting. But we now know it's because they have completely incompatible molecular profiles. If you don't believe me, try this at home. But please, don't blame me. Blame the molecules. At my restaurant, we often serve, as part of the tasting menu, white chocolate with caviar. An odd combination at first sight, but we now know they have very similar molecular profiles. Food for thought. And now for a Fat Duck special, délices of chocolate. I love surprising people when I cook. And this dish, the element of surprise comes not from an unusual flavour combination, but the way that the flavour and texture is released in the mouth. Now in this dish, we house popping candy in a crunchy base. It's disguised within the base itself. First, melt 20 grams of chocolate. Then add the praline, a paste made from pureeing roasted hazelnuts. Combine this with caramelized pieces of puff pastry and a little milk chocolate. And finally, the popping candy. This mix is lightly pressed into the bottom of individual ring molds and left in the fridge to cool and set. That's the base. Now the ganache, the center of the dessert. Bring the cream to the boil and pour it onto the chopped chocolate. Then add softened butter and let the whole thing melt. Once it's cooled down a little, but is still runny, pour it into the rings containing the popping candy and the biscuit base. Once they've set in the fridge, take some tempered bitter chocolate and dip a strip of plastic into it, so it's coated on one side. Then wrap it around the délices using the softened chocolate as a glue. Once that's hardened, top with glaçage miroir, chocolate glaze. Put the desserts back in the fridge. Meanwhile, make the cumin caramel sauce. Put sugar, cumin and cinnamon in a pan and cook until a golden caramel. Add butter and cream and bring to the boil. When everything is blended, pour this sauce through a chinois, a fine sieve, to remove the spices. Leave this to cool. Now, to make the shards of pulled caramel, made from melting sheets of fondant, glucose and cocoa powder. Roll the sheet with a pin, then pull a corner of the caramel gently so it stretches as thin as possible. Be careful, because if the caramel's too hot, it'll be too liquid and just come apart. If it's not hot enough, it'll snap before stretching and be too thick. To plate up, first a caramel and cumin sauce. Next, the chocolate delice with the plastic strips removed. A twirl with nibs of chocolate. A spoonful of chocolate sorbet. And finally, a shard of stretched caramel. And there you are, chocolate delice, containing 7 forms of chocolate.